The gymnasium was packed that Tuesday morning. Every student at Riverside Community High School sat shoulder to shoulder on the old wooden bleachers, whispering and wondering why they'd been called for an emergency assembly. 16-year-old Ryan sat near the back, his worn sneakers tapping nervously against the floor. Something felt wrong. The teachers looked worried, and Principal Davies stood at the podium with papers clutched in his shaking hands. When the principal finally spoke, his voice cracked. "I'm sorry to inform you all that due to severe budget constraints, Riverside High School will be closing permanently at the end of this semester." The words hit like a bomb. For a moment, there was complete silence. Then the crying started. Students hugged each other. Some sat frozen in shock. Ryan felt his stomach drop. This couldn't be happening. Not now. Not to this place. Riverside wasn't just any school. Sure, the paint was peeling off the walls, and the textbooks were older than most of the students. The roof leaked when it rained, and the heating barely worked in winter. But none of that mattered to the kids who went there. For them, Riverside was home. Ryan's hands clenched into fists as he watched his classmates fall apart. His best friend Isabella was sobbing into her hands. Their teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, had tears streaming down her face. Even the tough kids who pretended nothing bothered them looked devastated. The principal kept talking, explaining something about enrollment numbers and funding formulas, but Ryan couldn't focus on the words. His mind was racing. Where would he go? His mom worked 2 jobs just to keep their tiny apartment. There was no money for private school, and the other public schools in the district were miles away. He'd have to wake up at 5 in the morning just to catch the bus, but it wasn't just about convenience. Riverside had saved Ryan's life in ways most people wouldn't understand. When his dad left 3 years ago, Ryan had fallen apart. His grades tanked. He stopped caring about anything. Then Mrs. Rodriguez started staying after school to help him with homework. Coach Williams invited him to join the basketball team even though tryouts were over. The cafeteria workers made sure he got breakfast every morning, even when his student account was empty. This school had people who actually cared. People who saw him as more than just another poor kid from the South Side. They saw potential. They saw someone worth saving. As students filed out of the gymnasium, Ryan stayed in his seat. His mind was spinning with memories. The time the drama club came together to help him prepare for his first speaking presentation. The day he won the science fair with a project built from recycled materials. The morning Mrs. Rodriguez brought him a winter coat because she noticed he'd been wearing the same thin jacket for 2 years. "Ryan, you okay?" Isabella had come back, her eyes red and puffy. "No," he said honestly. "This isn't right. They can't just shut us down. What choice do we have? The decision's already made." Ryan stood up, his jaw set with determination. "I don't accept that." That night, Ryan couldn't sleep. He lay in his small bedroom, staring at the ceiling while his mom snored softly in the living room where she'd fallen asleep on the couch after her shift. The apartment was quiet except for the hum of the old refrigerator and the occasional siren from the street below. He pulled out his phone and started searching. How do schools get funding? Why do schools close? Is there any way to save a closing school? The more he read, the more hopeless it seemed. Everything came down to money. Always money. But then he found something interesting. Stories about communities that had rallied to save their schools, fundraising campaigns that had gone viral, regular people who had done extraordinary things when they refused to give up. Ryan sat up in bed, his heart pounding. Maybe there was a chance, a tiny impossible chance, but it was better than doing nothing. The next day at school, the mood was grim. Teachers tried to act normal, but you could tell their hearts weren't in it. Students walked through the halls like zombies. Some kids had already stopped showing up, figuring there was no point anymore. Ryan found Isabella at lunch, sitting alone at their usual table. She was picking at her food, not really eating. "I have an idea," Ryan said, sliding into the seat across from her. She looked up, her expression flat. "What kind of idea?" "A crazy one. Probably impossible. But I think we should try to save the school." Isabella blinked. "Save it? Ryan, they need like $500,000. We're students. We can barely afford lunch." "I know it sounds insane, but we can't just give up without trying. This place." Ryan's voice caught in his throat. "This place matters." Isabella was quiet for a long moment. Then something shifted in her expression. A tiny spark of hope. "What did you have in mind?" Ryan pulled out his phone and showed her the articles he'd found. Stories of crowdfunding campaigns, viral social media movements, communities coming together. People do this. They raise money for causes they believe in. Why can't we? Because we're nobody, Isabella said, but her voice had lost its defeated edge. We're just kids from the poor side of town. Nobody cares about us. Then we make them care, Ryan said fiercely. We show them what this school means. We tell our story. Isabella stared at him for a long moment. Then slowly she nodded. Okay, I'm in. But we're going to need help. By the end of lunch, they'd recruited Tyler, a quiet kid who was some kind of computer genius. He barely talked in class, but everyone knew he could do things with technology that seemed like magic. You want to raise $500,000? Tyler said, pushing his glasses up his nose. That's actually insane. So you won't help? Ryan asked. Tyler grinned, the first smile any of them had cracked in 2 days. I didn't say that. Insane is kind of my specialty. And just like that, 3 unlikely heroes began planning the impossible. They had no money, no experience, and no idea if what they were attempting could even work. But they had something more important. They had hope, determination, and a school full of people worth fighting for. What Ryan didn't know yet was that his simple decision to try would set off a chain of events that would shock everyone, expose dark secrets, and ultimately change far more than just one school's fate. Ryan stared at the number on his laptop screen. $500,000. It looked even more impossible written out with all those zeros. He was sitting at the public library after school, surrounded by Isabella and Tyler, and none of them had any idea where to start. Okay, so I looked into crowdfunding platforms, Tyler said, pulling up several websites. There are tons of them. But here's the thing. Most campaigns fail, like really fail. The average person raises maybe a few $100. Isabella slumped in her chair. So we're doomed before we even start. Not necessarily, Tyler continued, clicking through examples. The ones that succeed have something in common. They tell a story, a real story that makes people feel something. Ryan leaned forward. What kind of story? The kind that goes viral. Look at this one. A veteran needed help with medical bills. His daughter made a video showing what he'd sacrificed for his country. It got shared millions of times. They raised way more than they needed. But we're not veterans, Isabella said. We're just kids trying to save a school nobody's heard of. That's where you're wrong, Ryan said quietly. He'd been thinking about this all night. People have heard of us. We're that school. The one in the poor neighborhood. The one everyone drives past and feels sorry for. The one politicians promise to fix but never do. Tyler nodded slowly. He's right. That's our story. We're the underdogs, so what do we do? Make a video? Isabella asked. Yeah, but it has to be real, Ryan said. No fancy editing or fake emotional music. We just tell the truth about what this place means. Over the next week, they worked on the campaign every spare moment. Tyler set up the crowdfunding page and created social media accounts. Isabella wrote a script, but it sounded too formal, so they decided to just speak from the heart. Ryan borrowed a phone with a decent camera from Mrs. Rodriguez. They filmed in the school cafeteria early one morning before classes. Ryan stood in front of the camera, his hands shaking slightly. This felt huge. Like once he said these words out loud, there was no going back. My name is Ryan, he began, his voice uncertain. I'm a student at Riverside Community High School, and they're shutting us down. He paused, gathering courage. Then the words just flowed. I know what you're thinking. It's just another school closing. Happens all the time, right? But this place, it's different. When my dad left, I stopped caring about everything. My grades crashed. I thought about dropping out, but the teachers here wouldn't let me quit. Mrs. Rodriguez stayed every day after school to help me catch up. She didn't have to. She wasn't getting paid extra. She just cared. Isabella stepped into frame. The cafeteria workers here know every kid by name. When my mom lost her job last year, they made sure I got breakfast and lunch even when our account was empty. They never made me feel ashamed. They just quietly helped. Tyler appeared on screen, adjusting his glasses nervously. I got bullied at my old school for being different. When I came here, kids actually accepted me. The computer lab teacher saw I was good with technology and made me his assistant. He gave me confidence I never had before. The video went on. They showed the leaking roof, the old textbooks, the peeling paint. But they also showed the student art covering the walls, the trophy case full of achievements, the garden the environmental club had built in the courtyard. They showed what made Riverside special despite having nothing. "We need $500,000 to keep this school open," Ryan said at the end. "I know that sounds impossible. I've got $47 in my bank account. But I also know this place is worth saving. If you believe that every kid deserves a school where people care about them, please help us. Share this video. Donate if you can. Just don't let them erase us." They uploaded the video on a Sunday night. Tyler shared it across every social media platform he could find. Then they waited. By Monday morning, they had 37 views and 0 donations. "Maybe we should add music or something," Isabella suggested at lunch. "Give it time," Tyler said, though he looked worried too. By Tuesday, they had 200 views and 1 donation. $50 from someone named Anonymous. Ryan refreshed the page obsessively between every class. "This isn't working," Isabella said on Wednesday. They'd raised $300 total. At this rate, they'd need 1,000 years to hit their goal. Ryan refused to give up. He started posting the link in online forums and community groups. He printed flyers and put them up around the neighborhood. He even stood outside the grocery store on Saturday, handing out cards with the campaign information. Most people ignored him. Some were kind, but clearly didn't think it would work. One man laughed in his face. "Kid, nobody cares about your school. That's just how the world works." Those words hurt more than Ryan wanted to admit. He went home that night feeling defeated. Maybe everyone was right. Maybe this was stupid. Maybe he was just wasting everyone's time. His mom found him sitting in the dark, staring at his phone. The campaign was stuck at $3,000. They'd been at it for 2 weeks and they hadn't even raised 1% of what they needed. "You okay, honey?" she asked, sitting beside him on his bed. "I thought I could make a difference," Ryan said quietly. "I thought if I just tried hard enough I could save our school." "But nobody cares, Mom. We're nobody." His mom was quiet for a moment. Then she took his hand. "You know what I love about you, Ryan? You didn't let being nobody stop you from trying. Most people see a problem and complain. You saw a problem and fought. That matters even if you don't win. But we are going to lose. The school closes in 3 months. Maybe, but at least you tried. At least some people saw that video and remembered that kids like you exist. Kids who deserve better. That's not nothing." Ryan wanted to believe her, but the numbers didn't lie. $3,000 out of 500,000. They weren't even close. At school on Monday, the mood had somehow gotten worse. More students had stopped showing up. Teachers were openly job hunting during their free periods. Someone had spray-painted "RIP Riverside" on the gym wall. "We should probably give up," Isabella said quietly at lunch. "This isn't working," Tyler nodded reluctantly. "The algorithm isn't picking us up. Without viral momentum, we can't reach enough people." Ryan knew they were right, but he couldn't let go. Not yet. That afternoon, there was a town hall meeting at the community center. The school board was there to discuss the closure. Ryan decided to go, even though he knew it probably wouldn't change anything. The room was packed with angry parents and frustrated teachers. One by one, people stood up to complain, but they were just yelling, just venting. Nobody had solutions. Then Ryan stood up. His legs felt like jelly. His voice came out shaky, but he spoke anyway. "My name is Ryan. I'm a student at Riverside. I know you've all heard the numbers. I know it seems hopeless, but that school saved my life." He told his story, the real story, about his dad leaving, about failing classes and losing hope, about the teachers who refused to give up on him, about the community that had formed around him when his own family fell apart. "I tried to raise money to save the school," he said, his voice breaking. "I thought if I worked hard enough, if I cared enough, it would matter. But I was wrong. We've only raised $3,000. It's not even close to enough." He paused, fighting back tears. "But you know what? I'm glad I tried, because now I know exactly what we're losing. It's not just a building. It's not just a school. It's the only place where kids like me are seen as worth saving. And if you let it close, you're telling every kid in that school that they don't matter, that they're not worth fighting for." Ryan sat down, his face burning with embarrassment. He'd probably just made a fool of himself in front of the entire community. But at least he'd said what needed to be said. What Ryan didn't notice was the woman in the back row recording the whole thing on her phone. And he definitely didn't notice when she posted it online with the caption, "This kid's speech about his closing school broke my heart." By the next morning, everything was about to change. Ryan woke up to his phone buzzing nonstop. Text messages, notifications, emails all flooding in at once. Still half asleep, he grabbed the phone and squinted at the screen. His heart nearly stopped. The crowdfunding page had blown up overnight. Instead of $3,000, it now showed $48,000. And the number kept climbing as he watched. 50,000. 52,000. Mom! He yelled, jumping out of bed. Mom, something's happening. His phone rang. It was Isabella, screaming so loud he had to hold the phone away from his ear. Ryan, check Twitter. We're everywhere. He opened the app and couldn't believe what he saw. The video of his speech from the town hall had over 2 million views. People were sharing it with comments like, "This kid is amazing," and "Everyone needs to see this," and "This is what we're failing in America." Tyler called next, his voice shaking with excitement. "Dude, we're trending." Like actually trending. The campaign page crashed from too much traffic. "I'm trying to fix it now." Ryan sat on his bed, stunned. How had this happened? He'd given that speech feeling completely defeated, thinking nobody cared. Now suddenly the whole internet was talking about Riverside High School. His mom appeared in the doorway, already in her work uniform. "What's going on?" "I don't know," Ryan said honestly. Everything just exploded. By the time he got to school, news vans were parked outside. Actual reporters with cameras and microphones were trying to interview students. Principal Davies looked completely overwhelmed, fielding calls and questions from journalists. "Ryan," Mrs. Rodriguez grabbed him as soon as he walked in. "Channel 7 wants to interview you. The mayor's office called, and you've gotten donation pledges from people all over the country." It felt surreal. Ryan moved through the day in a daze. Between classes, he checked the campaign page obsessively. 75,000, 90,000, $100,000. People from California, New York, Texas, places he'd never been, were sending money to save a school they'd never heard of in a town they'd never visit. A famous actor who had grown up poor tweeted the video. A best-selling author shared it with her millions of followers. News articles started popping up everywhere. Student's emotional speech goes viral, and teen fights to save his school, and the power of one voice. But with the attention came something Ryan wasn't prepared for. The dark side of going viral. At first it was just a few mean comments. People saying he was probably making it up. That he just wanted attention. That the school deserved to close if it couldn't support itself. Ryan tried to ignore them, but they stung. Then things got worse. Someone found his mom's social media and started posting cruel things about their family. Trolls dug up an old arrest record from when his dad got in trouble years ago. They twisted it, making it sound like Ryan came from a criminal family. "Why are people being so mean?" Isabella asked during lunch. She'd been getting nasty messages too, people calling her a liar and saying the campaign was a scam. "Ignore them," Tyler said. But even he looked shaken. Someone had hacked one of their social media accounts and posted fake information. The worst part was the fake fundraisers. Scammers had created copycat campaigns, stealing their story and photos to trick people into donating to fake causes. Tyler spent hours reporting them, but new ones kept popping up. "We need to make a statement," Isabella said. "Let people know which campaign is real." They recorded a quick video verifying the official fundraiser, but the damage was done. Some people had already been scammed. The comments sections filled with accusations that Ryan and his friends were behind the fake campaigns too. "This is getting out of control," Ryan said, staring at his phone. The fundraiser was at $180,000, but the negativity was overwhelming. "Maybe we should stop." "Stop? Are you kidding?" Tyler said. "We're actually doing it. We're saving the school." But Ryan didn't feel victorious. He felt exhausted and anxious. Every time his phone buzzed, his stomach clenched. Reporters kept calling, wanting interviews. Strangers recognized him on the street. Someone had even shown up at his apartment building trying to take photos. His mom was worried. "This is too much pressure for a kid your age," she said. "Maybe you should take a step back." Ryan wanted to, but he couldn't. Too many people were counting on him now. The breaking point came on a Thursday afternoon. Ryan was at school trying to focus on a math test when he started feeling dizzy. The room spun. His chest felt tight, like he couldn't get enough air. "Ryan?" Mrs. Rodriguez was beside him. "Ryan, are you okay?" He tried to answer but couldn't. Everything went blurry. The next thing he knew, he was lying on the floor with people crowded around him. The ambulance came. The EMTs said it was exhaustion and stress. They took him to the hospital, where doctors ran tests and told him he needed to rest. Really rest, your body is shutting down, the doctor said. You've been under an enormous amount of stress. If you don't take care of yourself, this will get worse. Ryan lay in the hospital bed, hooked up to an IV, feeling like he'd failed everyone. The fundraiser was still going, still climbing, but he wasn't there to manage it. What if something went wrong? What if the trolls won? What if they couldn't reach the goal after all this? Isabella and Tyler came to visit that evening. They looked scared. Don't you dare apologize, Isabella said before Ryan could speak. You've done enough. More than enough. But the campaign, Tyler and I can handle it, she said firmly. You need to rest. Tyler nodded. We're at $215,000. We're almost halfway there, but none of that matters if you end up hurting yourself. That night, alone in the hospital room, Ryan finally let himself cry. Not from sadness, but from the overwhelming weight of everything. He was just a kid. He'd never asked to become some viral sensation, or to carry the hopes of an entire school on his shoulders. He just wanted to help, to do something that mattered. His mom stayed with him, sleeping in the uncomfortable chair beside his bed. When he woke up in the middle of the night, she was there. I don't know if I can do this, Mom, he whispered. Then don't, she said softly. You've already done more than anyone could ask. If you want to walk away, that's okay. The school will close or it won't, but your health matters more. Ryan knew she was right. But he also knew he couldn't quit. Not now. The next day, while Ryan was still in the hospital, something unexpected happened. A local news reporter named David Chen had been investigating Riverside's closure. He'd been digging through public records, trying to understand why the school was really being shut down. What he found changed everything. Tyler burst into Ryan's hospital room, laptop in hand, more excited than Ryan had ever seen him. You need to see this, Tyler said, pulling up a news article that had just been published. This reporter found something big, really big. Ryan read the headline and felt his heart skip a beat. Riverside High closure following the money trail. The article explained that the school district had a discretionary fund with over $600,000 in it. Money that was supposed to be used for emergencies and critical needs. Money that could have saved Riverside High School. But the superintendent had never mentioned this fund. Instead, he'd claimed there was no money available. The article suggested this wasn't about budget problems at all. Keep reading, Tyler urged. Ryan scrolled down. The reporter had found emails between the superintendent and a real estate development company. They wanted to buy the Riverside property to build expensive condos, and they'd offered the superintendent a consulting position after he retired. With a salary of $200,000 a year, they were going to shut down our school to make money, Ryan said, his voice hollow with shock. This was never about the budget. It was about greed. Isabella appeared in the doorway, out of breath from running. Have you seen the news? It's everywhere. People are furious, she was right. Within hours, the story exploded. The superintendent's corruption was trending nationally. Politicians were calling for investigations. The local community was demanding answers, but there was more to the story. Something even more shocking that nobody had discovered yet. Ryan's phone rang. It was Principal Davies, his voice urgent. Ryan, you need to get better quickly. The reporter found something else. Something bigger. This isn't just about our school. What do you mean? Ryan asked. The same development company has deals in place to close 3 other schools in low-income neighborhoods across the state. Your campaign didn't just expose one corrupt superintendent. You've uncovered a pattern of corruption that's been affecting thousands of students. Ryan sat in stunned silence. What had started as one kid trying to save his school had accidentally revealed a massive scandal, and now the whole country was watching to see what would happen next. The hospital released Ryan the next morning with strict instructions to rest. But resting was the last thing on his mind. Everything had changed overnight. The story wasn't about saving one school anymore. It was about exposing a system that had been cheating students across the entire state. When Ryan got home, his tiny apartment was surrounded by news vans. Reporters shouted questions as his mom hurried him inside. His phone hadn't stopped ringing. Lawyers, politicians, advocacy groups, everyone wanted to talk to him. This is insane, his mom said, locking the door behind them. Ryan, I'm proud of you, but this is getting dangerous. These are powerful people you're going up against. She was right to be worried. The superintendent had resigned, but he'd released a statement claiming the whole thing was a misunderstanding. The development company denied any wrongdoing, Their lawyers were already threatening to sue anyone who kept spreading false allegations. Tyler and Isabella came over that afternoon. They'd been managing the campaign while Ryan was in the hospital, and the numbers were staggering. "We're at $400,000, Tyler said, showing Ryan the updated page. "People are donating from all over the world. But there's a problem." "What kind of problem?" Ryan asked. Isabella pulled up her laptop. "Some people are questioning whether we should still raise money for the school. They're saying the district already has the money to keep it open. They think the fundraiser should stop." Ryan hadn't thought about that. She was right. If the hidden fund existed, they didn't technically need donations to save Riverside. But nothing was certain yet. The superintendent had resigned, but the school board still had to vote on whether to keep the school open. "I say we keep going," Ryan decided. "Even if they find the money to keep us open this year, what about next year? What about the other schools that were targeted? We should use this money to protect schools permanently." Tyler nodded. "That's what I thought too. I've already been contacted by education advocacy groups. They want to help us create a fund that can support vulnerable schools." Over the next few days, the scandal grew bigger. The state attorney general opened a formal investigation into the superintendent and the development company. Other districts started examining their own finances, looking for similar corruption. The reporter who'd broken the story, David Chen, reached out to Ryan directly. "I want to do a follow-up piece. Can we talk?" Ryan agreed to meet him at a coffee shop. David was younger than he'd expected, maybe in his early 30s, with tired eyes and coffee stains on his shirt. "You know you've started something huge, right?" David said, pulling out his recorder. "Since my article came out, I've gotten tips about similar schemes in 4 other states. This is bigger than anyone realized." "I just wanted to save my school," Ryan said quietly. "I know, but sometimes one person speaking up is all it takes to expose the truth. Can I ask you something? Weren't you scared? These are powerful people with expensive lawyers." Ryan thought about it. "I was terrified. Still am, honestly. But being scared doesn't mean you stop doing what's right." The interview was published the next day. More donations poured in. More people shared the story. But the backlash intensified too. The development company hired a PR firm to fight back. They released statements painting themselves as victims of a smear campaign. They claimed Ryan and his friends were being manipulated by activist groups who wanted to attack legitimate businesses. Then things got personal. Someone leaked Ryan's school records, trying to make him look like a bad student who was just angry about his own failures. They found old social media posts from when he was 13 and took them out of context. They dug up dirt on Isabella's family, on Tyler's past school problems. "They're trying to destroy our credibility," Isabella said during an emergency meeting at Tyler's house. Her hands were shaking. "My mom got a call at work. They threatened her job." Ryan felt sick. This was his fault. He'd dragged his friends into something that was now threatening their families. "Maybe we should back down," he said. "This isn't worth ruining your lives over." "Are you kidding?" Tyler said angrily. "They're doing this because we're winning. Because they're scared. If we quit now, they get away with everything." Isabella nodded, though she looked scared. "Tyler's right. We can't stop now." The school board scheduled an emergency meeting for the following week. They would vote on Riverside's fate and address the corruption scandal. Everyone knew this was the moment that would decide everything. Ryan was asked to speak at the meeting. But this time it wasn't just about Riverside. Education advocates wanted him to talk about the bigger picture. About how many schools were being targeted by greedy developers. About how many students were losing their safe places because adults were making backroom deals. The pressure was crushing. Ryan spent nights lying awake, writing and rewriting what he wanted to say. The words had to be perfect. Too much was riding on them. The night before the meeting, something unexpected happened. Ryan got a call from an unknown number. "Hello? Is this Ryan?" The voice was older, unfamiliar. "Yes. Who is this?" "My name is Robert Kim. I graduated from Riverside High School 30 years ago. I saw your campaign and I wanted to talk to you." Ryan almost hung up, assuming it was another reporter or troll, but something in the man's voice made him listen. "Riverside saved my life," Robert continued. "I was a poor kid just like you. Immigrant parents who barely spoke English. No money, no connections. But the teachers at that school believed in me. They pushed me when I wanted to quit. They saw potential I didn't know I had." "That's great," Ryan said, not sure where this was going. I want to help. I've followed your campaign. What you're doing, exposing this corruption, it matters. I'm a tech entrepreneur now, successful enough that I can make a difference. I'm donating $100,000 to your fund. Ryan nearly dropped the phone. What? Why? Because someone has to stand up for schools like Riverside. And you had the courage to do it. The least I can do is support you. The donation came through that night. The campaign jumped to $500,000. They'd exceeded their original goal, but Robert wasn't done. I want to testify at the school board meeting. I want them to hear what Riverside means from someone who lived through it. The next evening, the community center was packed beyond capacity. People stood in the aisles and crowded outside, watching through windows. News cameras lined the walls. This wasn't just a local school board meeting anymore. It was a national event. The board members looked uncomfortable as they took their seats. The interim superintendent, appointed after the previous one resigned, cleared his throat nervously. One by one, people spoke. Teachers pleaded for the school to stay open. Parents shared stories of how Riverside had helped their kids. Students cried as they talked about losing their second home. Then it was Ryan's turn. He walked to the microphone, his legs shaking. The room fell silent. A few months ago, I was just a kid trying to survive, Ryan began. I wasn't special. I wasn't brave. I was just someone who didn't want to lose the one place where people cared about me. He told the whole story. The campaign, the viral speech, the discovery of corruption. But he also talked about the bigger issue. This isn't just about Riverside anymore. It's about every school in every poor neighborhood that gets treated like it doesn't matter. It's about students who get told they're not worth investing in. It's about adults making decisions based on money instead of what's right for kids. Ryan's voice grew stronger as he spoke. You have a choice tonight. You can vote to save Riverside and send a message that students matter more than real estate deals. Or you can let this school close and prove that we were right all along, that nobody actually cares about kids like us. He sat down to thunderous applause. Then Robert Kim stood up to speak. I'm Robert Kim, he said. I'm the CEO of a tech company worth $300 million. And I wouldn't be here without Riverside High School. The room went completely silent. 30 years ago, I sat in the same classrooms that are falling apart now. I ate in the same cafeteria where the roof leaks. And the teachers who worked in that building gave me opportunities that changed my life. They're the reason I succeeded. Not luck, not talent. Because people cared. Robert looked directly at the school board. I'm offering to fund a permanent endowment for Riverside. $1 million to ensure this school stays open and thrives. But only if you vote tonight to reverse the closure. The room erupted. Board members whispered urgently to each other. The interim superintendent looked stunned. We need to deliberate, the board president said. We'll take a 30-minute recess. Those 30 minutes felt like hours. Ryan sat with Isabella Tyler, his mom, Mrs. Rodriguez, and dozens of supporters. Nobody knew which way the vote would go. When the board returned, the president looked grim. Ryan's heart sank. We've reached a decision, she announced. But first I want to apologize. This board failed you. We failed to protect your school. We failed to question decisions that should have been questioned. We allowed corruption to flourish. She paused, taking a breath. Effective immediately, Riverside High School will remain open. The room exploded with cheers and tears. Ryan felt Isabella grab his hand. Tyler was crying. His mom pulled him into a hug so tight he could barely breathe. But the president wasn't finished. Furthermore, we are accepting Mr. Kim's generous endowment and the funds raised by these remarkable students. We will also be launching a full investigation into all school property transactions over the past 5 years. It was more than they'd hoped for, more than Ryan had ever imagined possible. As people celebrated around him, Ryan felt the weight finally lift from his shoulders. They'd done it. They'd actually done it. But the biggest shock was still to come. The weeks after the school board vote felt like a dream. Riverside High School wasn't just saved. It was thriving. The endowment Robert Kim had promised came through, along with the money from the viral campaign. Suddenly, the school that had been falling apart had resources they'd never imagined. New computers arrived for the lab. The leaking roof got fixed. Fresh paint covered the hallways. But the best part was knowing they were safe. The school couldn't be closed on a whim anymore. They had protection. Ryan tried to return to normal life, but nothing felt normal anymore. He'd become famous in a way that felt uncomfortable. People recognized him at the grocery store. His social media had hundreds of thousands of followers. News outlets kept calling for interviews. "How does it feel to be a hero?" one reporter asked during yet another interview. "I'm not a hero," Ryan said, uncomfortable with the label. "I just didn't want my school to close." But the world had decided he was more than that. The story had grown beyond one school. The state investigation had uncovered corruption in multiple districts. 2 more superintendents had resigned. The development company was facing criminal charges. Laws were being proposed to prevent similar schemes in the future. "You started a movement," Isabella said one day at lunch. Things had mostly returned to normal at school, though Ryan still got stares in the hallways. "I didn't mean to," Ryan said. "That's what makes it real," Tyler added. "You weren't trying to be famous or change the world. You just cared about something worth fighting for." 3 months after the school board vote, Ryan got an email that would change his life again. It was from the admissions office at a prestigious university he'd never even considered applying to. MIT, one of the top tech schools in the country. "We were impressed by your initiative and leadership," the email read. "We'd like to offer you a full scholarship to attend our engineering program." Ryan stared at the screen, certain it was a mistake. He showed his mom, who burst into tears. "Baby, do you know what this means?" she said, holding the email like it was made of gold. "You could go to MIT, all expenses paid." It felt impossible. Kids from his neighborhood didn't go to schools like MIT. But here was the offer, real and official. More scholarship offers followed. Stanford, Carnegie Mellon, Berkeley. Universities that had seemed completely out of reach were competing for him. "This is because of what you did," Mrs. Rodriguez explained during one of their after-school talks. "You showed these schools that you're not just smart. You're someone who makes things happen." Ryan didn't feel like someone special. He felt like the same kid who'd almost failed math sophomore year. But he'd learned something important over these past months. Sometimes ordinary people did extraordinary things just by refusing to give up. The graduation ceremony in June was unlike any Riverside had seen before. News cameras were there, capturing what one reporter called the school that refused to die. Politicians showed up to give speeches. And Robert Kim returned to present a special award. "I'm creating a new scholarship fund," Robert announced to the packed auditorium, "for students at Riverside High School. Every year, 5 students will receive full college scholarships. This school saved my life 30 years ago. Now it's my turn to save others." He paused, looking emotional. "And I'm naming this scholarship after someone who taught us all what courage looks like." The Ryan Chen Scholarship Fund. Ryan sat in shock as people applauded. They were naming a scholarship after him. After a kid who'd barely kept his grades up. After someone who'd never thought of himself as special. When Ryan's name was called to accept his diploma, he walked across the stage to thunderous applause. Principal Davies shook his hand firmly. "You saved us all," the principal whispered. "Never forget that." But the biggest surprise came after the ceremony. Robert Kim pulled Ryan aside privately. "Can we talk?" Robert asked. They found a quiet corner away from the celebration. Robert looked nervous, which seemed strange for someone so successful. "I need to tell you something," Robert began. "Something I haven't told anyone else." Ryan waited, confused. "When I said Riverside saved my life 30 years ago, I meant it literally. I was in a bad place when I was 16. Depression, family problems, feeling like I had no future. One of the teachers here, Mr. Patterson, saw that I was struggling. He stayed late every day to help me, not just with homework, but with life. He convinced me I was worth something." Robert's voice cracked slightly. "I was planning to drop out. Maybe worse. But he wouldn't let me quit. He pushed me to apply for college even though I thought I'd never get in. When I got accepted, he helped me figure out financial aid. He changed everything." "That's amazing," Ryan said. "Is he still teaching here?" "He passed away 5 years ago," Robert said quietly. "Heart attack. I never got to thank him properly. Never told him what he meant to me." Ryan understood now. "That's why you helped us. Partly. But also because when I saw your video, when I heard your speech, I saw myself. I saw that same desperation and determination. And I realized something. Mr. Patterson didn't just save one kid. He saved me so I could eventually save others. That's how it works." Robert pulled out an envelope and handed it to Ryan. "This is for you. Not a scholarship. Not a donation. A personal gift." Ryan opened it carefully. Inside was a check for $50,000. "I can't accept this," Ryan said immediately. "You can and you will. Robert said firmly. Your mom works 2 jobs. You've spent months fighting for everyone else. Let someone fight for you for once. Use this money however you need. College expenses help your mom. Whatever matters to you. Ryan's hands shook as he held the check. It was more money than he'd seen in his entire life. But there's one condition, Robert added with a smile. Someday when you're successful and settled, I want you to find a kid like you were, someone fighting against impossible odds, and I want you to help them. Pass it forward. I promise, Ryan said, his voice barely a whisper. The celebration went late into the evening. Students, teachers, and community members gathered in the gym, sharing food and stories. The atmosphere was joyful but also bittersweet. Many seniors were leaving, moving on to whatever came next. Isabella was going to state college to study education. She wanted to become a teacher like the ones who'd helped her. Tyler had gotten a scholarship to study computer science and was already talking about creating apps to help underfunded schools. We make a good team, Isabella said as the 3 friends sat together on the gym bleachers, watching the party below. The best team, Tyler agreed. Ryan smiled. I couldn't have done any of this without you 2. That's the point, Isabella said. None of us could have done it alone. But together we changed everything. She was right. One person had started the fight, but it took a community to win it. The teachers who'd supported them, the students who'd shared the campaign, the strangers who'd donated, Robert Kim, who'd seen himself in their struggle, even the reporter who'd uncovered the truth. Everyone had played a part. As the party wound down and people started leaving, Ryan found himself alone in the empty cafeteria. This was the room where he'd eaten breakfast every morning for 3 years, where cafeteria workers had quietly made sure he had food even when money was tight, where he'd sat with Isabella and Tyler planning an impossible campaign. Mrs. Rodriguez found him there. Reflecting? Trying to, Ryan said. It still doesn't feel real. That's because you never fought for glory. You fought because you cared. That's what made the difference. She handed him a folded piece of paper. I wrote this for you. Don't read it now. Save it for when you need a reminder of where you came from. Ryan hugged her, this teacher who'd saved him before he even knew he needed saving. A few weeks later, Ryan got another unexpected call, this time from the state legislature. We'd like to invite you to testify, a staff member explained. We're passing new legislation to protect schools from predatory developers. Your story inspired the bill. We want you there when the governor signs it into law. So Ryan found himself at the state capitol, standing beside politicians and education advocates as the governor signed the School Protection Act into law. The bill required transparency in all school property decisions and created safeguards against the kind of corruption that had almost destroyed Riverside. This is because of you, one state senator told Ryan. One student refusing to be silent changed the entire system. But Ryan knew it wasn't just him. It was every student who'd shared the campaign, every person who'd donated, every teacher who'd fought for their students, every community member who'd demanded better. Change didn't happen because of one person. It happened because one person inspired others to act. That fall, Ryan packed his bags for MIT. His mom cried as she helped him load the car. They were driving to Massachusetts together, a road trip they never could have afforded before Robert's gift. I'm so proud of you, she said, hugging him tight. Not because you're going to MIT, because you never stopped believing that one person could make a difference. On his last day in town, Ryan visited Riverside one more time. The school year had started and new students filled the hallways. Freshmen who'd been in middle school during the fight to save the school. Kids who'd never know how close this place came to disappearing. The trophy case in the main hallway had a new addition. A plaque that read, dedicated to the students who saved Riverside High School. May we never forget that courage comes in all ages, and heroes are made by those who refuse to give up. Below it was a photo from the campaign. Ryan, Isabella, and Tyler standing together outside the school, looking tired but determined. They'd been so young, so scared, so certain they would fail, but they hadn't failed. They'd won, and in winning, they'd proved something important. That one person caring enough to fight could inspire a movement. That students had power when they found their voices. That corruption couldn't survive in the light. That communities were strongest when they stood together. As Ryan drove away from Riverside for the last time as a student, He thought about Robert's request to find someone else who needed help and pass it forward. He made a silent promise that he would, because that's how change really worked. Not through one big hero, but through chains of people helping each other. Each person lifting up the next, creating a ladder that reached higher than anyone could climb alone. Ryan had climbed out of poverty and hopelessness because people had helped him. Now it was his turn to help others climb. The story that had started with one desperate student trying to save his school had ended with new laws, protected schools, and opportunities for thousands of students. But more than that, it had proved something that people often forgot. That ordinary people could do extraordinary things. That the system could be changed. That fighting for what's right, even when it seemed impossible, was always worth it. Ryan didn't know what the future held. But he knew one thing for certain. He would never forget where he came from, never forget the school that saved him, never forget the teachers who believed in him, never forget the friends who fought beside him. And someday, when some other kid was fighting an impossible battle, Ryan would be there to help them, just like others had helped him, because that's what heroes did. Real heroes. The ones who started as nobody special but refused to stay silent when something mattered. The ones who proved that changing the world started with one person caring enough to try.